12 years at least, from other organizations when both of us were busy. And she now is, I gotta find what you're called this year. I can't find it, Michelle, where is it? You were Greenbelt, now you're Executive Director. County Parks, pardon me. Okay, I missed that.
Oh, thank you, Jim. We'll print these in bigger print in the future. So this is here about 20%.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me come back and give you a little update. I was last here in 2017, so I'm very happy to come back. I'm going to do a little bit of a refresher on the benefits of open space. I'm going to go through some of the latest developments in the county park system and also talk about some of the future threats to the park system that the Parks Department is paying attention to and that the Parks Foundation is interested in supporting. So I'm the Executive Director. I've been in this role for about 4 years. And our mission is to inspire people to care for, learn about, and enjoy San Mateo County parks. And the Parks Foundation is the nonprofit partner to the Parks Department. We are a separate organization, but we were formed 20 years ago specifically to raise money for projects and programs that benefit the 22 San Mateo County parks. And I'm just going to do another little plug, just in case any of you know, the San Mateo County Parks Department is currently hiring for a parks director. The window does close on Monday, but if you happen to know anybody that would like to throw their hat in the ring, we could really use a great parks director. So quickly going through the benefits of parks and open space. On the left, we have a gentleman standing in the redwoods. Redwood trees are a very potent weapon against climate change. They absorb and store more carbon from the atmosphere per acre than any other forest on the planet, including rainforests. Another benefit on the right, you have people walking through, that's not Edgewood Park, but basically the mental and physical health benefits of spending time in nature. Doctors are actually prescribing nature to their patients. Just 30 minutes a week in nature can reduce stress, depression, and heart disease. Another benefit of parks and open space is green infrastructure. So on the left, you have a flooded mobile home park. Flooding happens for a variety of reasons, including when we channelize our creeks. When we channelize our creeks, we move water away from its source really quickly, and it leads to downstream flooding. So our creeks, our natural creeks, do a lot better at actually managing wet weather incidents. The water is absorbed right where it falls, and the creeks slow down the rate of the water movement. So again, nature can address wet weather impacts a lot better than some of the things that we build. And then also the image on the right, just a picture of Pescadero Creek. But we live in a biodiversity hotspot. The California coast from Big Sur up to the Oregon coast is rich in biodiversity. And when you have a lot of different insects and animals living in a place, you have a very healthy habitat. And we're all part of that ecosystem. So we do better when we live in a healthy habitat. A very obvious benefit of parks and open space is the recreational opportunities. This is off Coyote Point, which has world-class windsurfing and kiteboarding. You can ride your horse, you can ride bikes, you can go hiking. And then on the right, we have Devil's Slide. And so the sixth benefit of parks and open space is the benefit to the local economy. Being active in the outdoors means that you can save on medical-related costs down the road. When we use our parks and open space as green infrastructure, you can save on channelizing creeks and other very costly infrastructure projects. And then there's also tourism-related dollars and property tax value increases when you live near parks and open space. So that's a very quick revisit as to why, if you're like, oh, I don't really ever go to a park, so how do they benefit me? This is why parks and open space is good for all of us. So here's our San Mateo County Park system in dark green. We have 22 county parks around the entire county, going all the way to the northern part with San Bruno Mountain, down to the Santa Cruz Mountains with our Pescadero Creek complex. We have a lot of parks on the coast, and then of course Coyote Point is on the bay. So we really have a variety of different landscapes and a little bit of something for everyone to enjoy. So I'm not going to run through all of the parks, but I'm going to run through a lot of them and tell you about some of the latest happenings. So in Coyote Point, the Coyote Point Eastern Promenade is now fully funded. This is very exciting. They are basically going to be bringing the living coastline back to Coyote Point, and it's going to be designed with climate change. It's going to be designed to address climate change, and in Coyote Point's case, really sea level rise, because with rising waters, a lot of our San Mateo County will be underwater, including this park. And so the promenade trail is going to be elevated and moved back. There's going to be a sandy beach year-round in Coyote Point, and they're going to be designing a curved-shaped bay. And so I don't know what the timeline is. Now that it's been funded, they're going to have to take the plan and dust it off and upgrade it. So hopefully I'll have information as to when they break ground. But I wanted to kind of plug something that's on the horizon. It is being proposed, the Flood and Sea Level Rise Resiliency District is proposing the formation of a coordinated, cross-jurisdictional collaborative to face coastal erosion, sea level rise, and flooding threats. San Mateo County is the most threatened county in California when it comes to sea level rise because we are impacted basically on two sides of the county. And so a San Mateo County sea level rise vulnerability assessment completed in 2018 found that by 2100 a sea level rise scenario could see $34 billion of property underwater basically or destroyed as a result. So it really behooves all the jurisdictions in San Mateo County to work together to figure out how to address sea level rise together, how to go after grants together. So hopefully that will kick off. This is being discussed right now, and hopefully things will start to really move on that in 2020. Really significant and very exciting development with the Crystal Springs Dam. This is a question I got probably more than any other question when I started the Parks Foundation, which is when is the dam bridge going to open up? And so it finally opened up in January. After 8 years, this segment was closed as they were fixing the dam, and it's opened up to a new 1 mile trail just south of the dam. And so this is an 18-mile trail that goes pretty much from San Bruno down to Woodside. And this newest element is really quite lovely. If you haven't gone to check it out, I encourage you to go enjoy this vantage point of the reservoir. Edgewood Park, I don't know if the wildflowers are popping in this picture, but this is Easter Sunday at Edgewood this year. And so the wildflowers were just off the charts. And so this is really the premier destination to see wildflowers in San Mateo County. And we had a real banner year this year and the year before. What that means, just FYI, is parking at Edgewood is very, very challenging. Crossing Edgewood Road is very unsafe. People should really try and figure off-peak times to visit the park, especially in the springtime, and also utilize some of the other entrances to the park. The Sheriff's Department is going to be ticketing and has been ticketing people parking on the bike lanes on Edgewood Road. So the Friends of Edgewood and everyone is trying to make sure that people, especially during the wildfire season, is very thoughtful and careful about when they visit the park and how they access the park. And the Parks Foundation has been funding a lot of habitat restoration and endangered species recovery at Edgewood. We've been funding the reintroduction of the bay checker spot butterfly for about 8 years, as well as the restoration of the San Mateo thornament and the white-ringed pentacada. Edgewood is pretty phenomenal. I have some newsletters in the back if anyone wants to know more about what the volunteers have been doing. These are the Edgewood Weed Warriors. They meet year-round at 9 a.m. for about 3 hours, and they are pulling all kinds of weeds at Edgewood. This is them pulling yellow star thistle, and it's pretty amazing the power of volunteers. And the foundation has been funding volunteer efforts throughout the county parks, tools, training, gear, and so forth. And when Edgewood was first acquired by the county, it was overrun by weeds. But the California Native Plant Society said it was also home to so many wildflowers that you had to do something about the weeds because they were just going to choke out all the endemic plants. The power of volunteers is real. It's really, human hand pulling has basically eradicated this park. And if you go to parks a lot, you will see the difference between Edgewood and other parks where there are a lot of weeds. So I'm making a call to action. If any of you love to garden, Edgewood could really use some more weed warriors. And it's a very satisfying way to kind of end your work week and enter the weekend. Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, yes. Yeah.
Sorry. How's that butterfly?
The butterfly is actually still struggling at Edgewood. They have started reintroducing it to San Bruno Mountain, and it's doing far better. And the butterflies come from Coyote Ridge down in San Jose. I think it's still, basically it's a lot of the cars on 280, it's the nitrous oxide or whatever that comes out of the tailpipe, and it allows the weeds to grow and they choke out the native plants. So there's a mix of mowing and hand pulling, but the butterflies, it's been challenging, especially when you have too much rain and then too much drought. We have a lot of inconsistent weather.
Yeah, my wife and I went out there for the caterpillar release.
Yeah.
And so
they're out there. There's another volunteer opportunity where you can count bay checker spot butterflies in the late winter, early spring. So you can get trained to do that. Fitzgerald Marine Reserve had a banner year this year because it turned 50 years of stewardship, and there have been a number of events. The foundation funded an educational video on marine protected areas. This is part of the marine protected area, which means no take and no harassment of the wildlife. In some ways you could say that Fitzgerald Marine Reserve is being loved to death. Lots of people come to visit this site, but it's very sensitive. And it's also very interesting because a lot of citizen science projects take place around Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. One thing they're really studying right now is the starfish wasting disease. Starfish are rapidly disappearing, so you'll have a lot of volunteers who will go out and regularly count starfish to see where are they moving to, why are their numbers decreasing, and a lot of this is a result of a changing climate. Flood Park.
What was that last slide? What's that red patch there?
This here?
Yeah.
So this is the video that the foundation helped fund. It's on the California Marine Protected Areas website, and it's an educational video so people understand why there is no take in this area, why you can't go fishing in Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. So you can watch that video, but I haven't made it. I don't know how to make it work in this, so I can't play it for you. Flood Park also is very timely. The revised draft environmental impact report has been circulating for a 45-day window, and that window closes on Monday. And basically, Flood Park was a highly activated park in the 70s, and then it kind of fell into disrepair and very quiet. And the neighbors got very used to it just being very quiet with big trees. But the county wants to go back in and reactivate it, and for very good reason, because we don't have a lot of playing fields for youth sports. And so there are playing fields at Flood Park right now, but they have fallen into disrepair and they're not usable. And so the county is proposing, bringing back a soccer field and a softball field and tennis courts and a basketball court and a pump track. And so that is what the EIR is looking at, and then the Board of Supervisors will probably visit it sometime this fall. Yeah.
Soccer fields for people that have grandchildren or kids, there just aren't enough.
Right.
The kids to be able to be on a soccer team and play have to drive 30, 40 miles to a game at 9 o'clock at night to be able to have a game, because we just don't have, we have too much population for the number of soccer fields.
Yeah, it comes up a lot, a lack of playing fields. And if you talk to like high school kids about what they want to see in their community, what we often hear is, you don't really ever design anything for us to go hang out in. And so playing fields can help with that. So yeah.
Question on the playing fields, is it anticipated that they will use natural grass rather than something synthetic?
I don't think that decision has been made yet. What they have done to kind of address the neighbors' concerns is that there wouldn't be night games and there wouldn't be lights on in the evening, because it is surrounded by a residential neighborhood. I would say the biggest challenge with the extensive development proposed for a park here is that there's a lot of traffic in Menlo Park around Bay Road and so forth. And so that's really what the concerns are for the neighbors. So when I talk about future threats, wildfire is a really big threat. And what's crazy to me is our wildfire season hasn't really kicked off. Our biggest wildfire in state history happened in December down in Santa Barbara. So I feel like we're getting to this time when everyone needs to be really thoughtful about fire safety, and San Mateo County Parks is taking this very seriously. CAL FIRE has identified 35 priority fuel reduction zones in the state of California, and there are 2 in San Mateo County. One's on Kings Mountain Road, so Huddart Park is a huge focus for the county parks to get rid of fuel reduction, and then Quarry Park in El Granada is the other one that's high fire risk. And so this is a major focus for the Parks Department, and the foundation is very committed to supporting them in these efforts. And a lot of it is just, you go through chainsaws pretty quickly. And it can cost $7,000 to remove just one eucalyptus tree. Eucalyptus trees have maybe a lifespan of 100 years, and then they get really dry, and they suck up a lot of water. Acacia is the other tree. When you talk to CAL FIRE, they're just like, do not plant these in your yard. They grow like weeds. So we are seeing a lot of fuel reduction, which is like, and what I actually just participated in a great CAL FIRE presentation on Saturday. You know, our wildfires are becoming a lot longer and a lot more intense as a result of climate change, but also as a result of our fire suppression model in the West Coast. We have put fires out really quickly, not recognizing the natural benefit of low-grade burning to get rid of all of that duff and the understory. And so what happens is that John Muir used to talk about riding a horse through Tahoe. You can't really ride a horse there anymore. The undergrowth is so thick, and there's so much dead, dry stuff that CAL FIRE is like, we need to start removing this stuff. And so we're creating fuel breaks in Huddart Park, and we're getting, the county is getting rid of a lot of the dry stuff on the ground and removing trees that are clearly dead. So this is in Huddart Park. This has been a huge focus over the summer and will continue to be in the coming years. And this is Quarry Park. So Quarry Park is the other hotspot. It looks like a jungle, and it has a lot of exotic plants. So this is before the park rangers and their volunteers started clearing a lot of the undergrowth. And this is how it looks now. They have tackled 20 acres of the 100 acres they want to address in Quarry Park. And so this is just, you know, a reminder that we live in a fire zone, and all of us should be diligent to make sure that we take care of our communities. So moving on to Memorial Park. Memorial Park is a focus for the foundation because Memorial Park is turning 100 in 2024, which is right around the corner, and it's basically the birth of the Parks Department. And Memorial Park is absolutely a lovely place, but a lot of their facilities were built during the Works Progress Administration in the 1930s. So they haven't really been upgraded significantly. The county is now upgrading them, and we are complementing their efforts. So the park is going to be closed to camping between October of this year through spring of 2021. That means no camping for about a year and a half at Memorial Park. That's because they are doing significant infrastructure projects, and it's harder to do those when you got a bunch of campers around you. So the big project that they're going to be doing is a whole new wastewater treatment plant. And after that goes in, they're going to be redoing the shower buildings, and they're probably going to be repaving the roads. What the foundation is focusing on is the ranger station and the nature center. We've been making green design upgrades as well as ADA improvements, and we're going to be working on the nature center, which really needs a lot of love and attention. And we are just releasing a survey to about 10,000 people who have reserved a site at Memorial Park sometime in the last 10 years to get their thoughts on what they would like to see improved at Memorial Park. So hopefully you'll see a lot of really great enhancements here. Pillar Point, so we have flooding on the bay side, but we have significant erosion on the coast side. This is Pillar Point, it's the Gene Lauer Trail. This is dangerous if you're on the trail on the bluff and if you're sitting on the beach below. It's always good, and if anyone noticed, in Encinitas, some people were killed because the chunk of this bluff fell on top of them. So this is a real thing. Don't sit up against the bluff when you're on the beach. And just be very careful. If you see a trail eroding, just make sure the rangers know this is something that we're very aware of on the coast. Yeah?
Are there weather conditions where that's particularly a concern?
This is a result of our 2017 winter storms. So basically, we just lose a little bit of our park. It's crumbled.
That's kind of the south end of Marine Fitzgerald.
This is south of Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. This is Pillar Point. It's
How about the airport?
Yeah.
Beyond the airport.
Yeah, basically right by the airport.
How about God's Golf Tee out there?
Yeah, exactly. I just threw Sam McDonald because this is my favorite park. It flies under the radar. It's right by Memorial Park. And it has a wonderful history. This is Sam McDonald. He worked for Stanford University and was the superintendent of buildings and grounds. And was just like this gentle giant. He bought some land in La Honda, and he built himself a cabin called Chichihuahua. And he was a volunteer at the Stanford Convalescent Hospital, and when he passed away, he deeded the land to always be used for the benefit of the children. And so there's a lot of youth campsites. And so this park tends to get less attention, so I always like to just throw it in there because it's a really special place with a lot of old growth rivers. This is San Bruno Mountain. One of the things that the Parks Foundation underwrites is Open Road with Doug McConnell. We funded an episode that focused on San Bruno Mountain, and we had Doug McConnell talk to Ramona, who used to be the Natural Resources Manager, and then folks from San Bruno Mountain Watch to talk about how this very special basically an island of biodiversity surrounded by urban development is just such a wonderful place for endangered butterflies, including the bay checker spot, and has a lot of very rare and endangered plants. So this is also a pretty fantastic place to visit in the springtime, and it also has just 360-degree views of the bay. So Sanchez Adobe, so tomorrow is a pretty big day. There's a lot happening. There's California Coastal Cleanup. There's Rancho Days at Sanchez Adobe. And so basically, this is a big year for Sanchez Adobe. It's been closed for the past couple of weeks because they are upgrading it with a new visitor center, and new pathways. We have been funding some of the ADA improvements here. And it's going to be the site of some ribbon cuttings because this fall is the 250th anniversary of Gaspar de Portola sighting of San Francisco Bay. Now, some people say he discovered it. He did not. There were a lot of Native American tribes living all around the bay. He was the first European to set eyes, and that kind of ushered in a whole new era in California. So there's going to be some events that kind of talk about the Ohlone and the Spanish and just like that couple of weeks when they first met, because that was a little bit more positive. So Sanchez Adobe will be having a grand opening this fall, and you can see all the new enhancements soon. Tunitas Creek Beach. So when I came here 2 years ago, I didn't mention Tunitas Creek Beach as one of the parks. This is the newest addition, and it's not quite a park yet. The county received $3 million from the California State Coastal Conservancy to basically design access improvements. Right now it's very difficult to get there. There's no parking really, there's no trail access, there's no bathrooms. And so there's going to be a real focus to making sure it's accessible, and then it will be officially a park. But in the short time, there has been a lot of cleanup because before, part of the reason why it became San Mateo County Park is because no one was paying attention to it, and there were late night parties and dangerous parking on Highway 1. People were driving their cars down the creek to unload a bunch of stuff and party on the beach all night long and then leave their garbage there. So it was a pollution and a safety issue. So San Mateo County Parks is taking it over, and we'll be keeping an eye on it.
Where is it?
It's close to like San Gregorio, south of Half Moon Bay. It's pretty hard to miss, but there are, if you're driving north on Highway 1 from Pescadero and you suddenly come across, what's that? You know you're, I mean, it's a beautiful and
I've
post.
seen it recently, driving from Santa Cruz up on.
Yeah, it's a huge stretch of beach.
I was, yeah.
You can take their special field trips and stuff that our organizations are leading there.
Is that where the bridge goes over that little creek type of thing?
Yeah, I think it is. That's probably Tunitas Creek, yeah.
And people are parking just,
It's
you're right,
dangerous.
it's very dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just before 84, La Honda?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a surfing beach?
Oh, that I don't know about. But it was clearly a party beach, and they just left all their
Yeah.
junk down there. And so there's two organizations that do regular cleanups, the Pacifica Beach Coalition and the TLC Locals. Another call to action, if any of you want to pick up garbage, it's actually very therapeutic. So Wonderlic County Park, this is also another fuel reduction, but also habitat restoration effort that the Parks Department is doing in partnership with PG&E. They're getting rid of a lot of eucalyptus and acacia, and they're replacing them with acorns and buckeye seeds. So just a little plug, the county does have a pilot program going for dogs. If any of you are dog owners and you're like, where can I take my dog? In addition to a lot of the coastal parks, you can now bring your dog to Coyote Point and Junipero Serra County Parks. Dogs have to be on leash. The park rangers have been trained to educate people, and if people keep bringing their dogs off leash, they will get cited. But we have seen a lot more dogs on leash at Coyote Point, and I think that's a good thing. It's more access for people. And then back to some of the core programs for the Parks Foundation, we continue to fund field trips for low-income youth to get to the parks. It's really our mission to make sure that every kid in San Mateo County and beyond has an opportunity to see a banana slug or stand under a redwood tree or feel the breeze of the ocean on their face. So we will fund hundreds of kids to get to the parks and meet with a ranger or docent every year. We have been funding habitat restoration efforts mostly in Edgewood Park, but looking to expand that throughout the county parks. And so these are volunteers who are dropping in San Mateo thorn mint seedlings. We do a lot of events. We put on Coyote Nights, which was really awesome this summer. That's just the summer series we do at Coyote Point. We had park rangers come out and lead activities. We sponsored the Coyote Point Kite Festival, and we've done geocaching with REI. We're always open to new ideas for events, especially events that target people who may not think about hanging out in the park. We also fund access improvements. This is a bridge that eroded and fell away down Pescadero Creek, and so we funded a new bridge. We have funded other trail openings, usually closed because of wet weather impacts. We have funded new trail signs throughout all the county parks, so people have a little bit more information than they did before about where they are. I would say the coolest feature is that all of these signs have numbers on them, so if you're in Pescadero Creek and you get a little nervous that you're lost, just open your park map and you will see the number 19. You'll see it on your park map. You'll automatically know where you are. And then volunteers. We support the tools and the training for volunteer projects throughout the county parks. And then interpretation. This is at Memorial Park. We funded, this is a new bridge that allows the steelhead trout to be able to make their way to the ocean and back. Before, this was actually a barrier, and now the fish can go underneath, cars can drive on top, and we funded this interpretation site so people can understand a little bit more about why we were trying to help the fish make their way back to their ancestral breeding grounds. And that's my presentation, just under 30 seconds left.
Michelle, with the population growth we're having, your job is going to become more and more important, and the county parks are going to be under stress a lot. Where does your funding come from to cover all these repairs you're making?
Well, I would say it's really the power of individuals. Most of our funding comes from people who've been supporting the foundation for 20 years. So that's really where the majority of our support comes from. And then we have some foundations that have been supporting us over the time, and then we're getting a little bit more corporate support. So that has been the bulk of where our funding comes. Ultimately, individuals, foundations, and then corporations. Yeah.
As you learn and use these parks around our area, Santa Cruz Mountain Cemetery, Central County, one of the things that has struck me in learning history of a lot of places, but that people had foresight in the 19th century to preserve some things like old redwoods, old growth redwoods. There's not a lot left. And large tracts of land going up into the foothills and into the coast mountains. There are estates, patchwork of estates, and we're still assembling those. We still see this going on in the news this week. This is kind of an interesting part of our local and state history that many of the preserves, the natural preserves today, are a result of foresight of people many generations ago that saw the need to protect our resources.
I know, and actually the San Mateo County Historical Association just honored Lenny Roberts. If any of you recognize her name, she has spent probably 5 decades helping to protect a lot of the land on the coast. And so we're still lucky to be surrounded by people who have that vision. I would say the vision now, today we have the climate strike, so it would really be our youth, our high school students who are really being visionary right now. And so they're striking today, and I think a lot of next week. And I think the more we can get behind them, because they're being very visionary, but it's because they see that their future is quite bleak, and they have a stake in the game, unlike a lot of people who may, like my own father, who's like, I'll be dead. I'm like, oh, that doesn't really help the situation. So those are our visionary leaders. I think we all need to get behind our high school kids because they are really leading the way right now.
Great.
Thank you for having me.